Welcome to the Boost Your IQ video series. This series demonstrates setup and operation of unique features on the Liquid Control's IQ family of registers. Be sure to follow our YouTube channel and you will be notified as new features are released in this video format. I'm Jeff Hageman, and today I'm going to demonstrate the basic setup and configuration of the LCR.iQ for the LPG market in North America. This tutorial will cover all the basic setup information needed to configure an LPG system. We'll also make some additional recommendations as we go through the setup parameters. To assist in this demonstration, I've reset the LCR.iQ back to factory defaults by performing a clear all. If you're interested in learning how to perform a clear all, look for the Boost Your IQ tutorial on performing a clear all. To begin, the first thing we're going to do is place the LCR.iQ register in the calibration position. This will allow us to access and set up all the different fields needed for the propane market. Locate the bolt on the side of the register and rotate it counterclockwise about 6 turns until the register enters the calibration position. If you have a ticket printer connected, it will print a ticket at this time. If not, just press the Abort Print button. Once we're in the calibration position, the register should automatically go to the main menu. To begin the setup process, we're going to start by going into the setup menu. So we're going to use the down arrow to move the selection bar down to setup menu and then press OK. Now that we're in the setup menu, we're going to start at the top with the register section. So we'll press OK on register. So what we're going to do now is cover each of the individual fields that would typically be set up on a standard LPG installation in the US market. As we go through this tutorial, there will be fields that I don't mention in this specific setup that are used for other marketplaces or other applications. If you'd like to learn more about these individual fields, you can consult the Liquid Control's LCR.iQ manual, or remember that every single field in the IQ register has an info button once you're inside of that field. If you press the info button, that will give you the textbook definition of what that field is used for. The first field we're going to talk about in this tutorial is the unit ID field. If I press the down arrow once to move the navigation bar to unit ID, I can then press OK to enter the unit ID field. Once I'm in the unit ID field, I can use this field to identify a location or a truck number that the LCR.iQ is mounted to. In this case, we'll enter in a truck number. Once I enter in the truck number, I can press OK, and now that ID number is now associated to that LCR.iQ. The next field, volume unit of measure, should always be set to gallons for LPG in the US. The next field, residual processing, should also be set to round. The flow rate base should be set to per minute. The temperature unit of measure should be set to Fahrenheit. The date format should be set to month, day, year, or MMDDYY, and the current date should be set to whatever today's date is. The time format typically is set to hours, minutes, and seconds, which is a 24-hour clock. And then the current time should be set to the time zone that the truck will be deployed in. In Register Screen 204, the first field is the sale number. Typically on a new installation, the sale number starts from 0, which means the first delivery made with the system will be sale number 1. That sale number will then increment each time a valid delivery is started on the LCR.iQ. The ticket number will also increment with each delivery that's made on the IQ register. However, if a duplicate ticket is printed, the ticket number will increment again. Therefore, each sale number is unique to the sale, but each ticket number is unique every time that a ticket is printed, whether it's an original ticket or a duplicate. The next field is no-flow timer. From the factory, the default setting for the no-flow timer is 180 seconds, or 3 minutes. This is also the standard setting for the LPG market. However, there is a means within the software to enable and disable the no-flow timer by the driver should they need to make multiple deliveries at one location. We'll show how to set that up when we get into the custom configuration section of the register. The next group of fields determines the type of presetting that will be allowed on the register. In the case of LPG, the standard settings would be gross presets allowed no, net preset allowed yes, and then weight preset no, and then price preset also no. However, If you are doing pricing with the IQ, note that you can set up the price presets as well when doing LPG, but the standard setting would be no. The next field we'll talk about is the preset type. The preset type, again, defaults to clear as the standard default setting. In LPG, clear is the standard option that we would use when presetting. This means that once we do a preset delivery, that preset will be cleared out once the preset amount is reached and the delivery will be ended. And on the next delivery, we have to set a new preset value. The next option, Activate Hose Reset option, is also defaulted to yes and is a standard setting for the LPG market. This means that the option to activate the hose reset will be available to the user should they need to use it following a preset delivery. Now, in Register Screen 3 of 4 is where we set up information around the ticket printer and the type of printed ticket that will be supplied if a ticket printer is used. Part of the standard in the US market for LPG is that the system does require that a ticket be printed for each transaction. The first field in Register Screen 3 of 4 is Printer Type. Printer Type allows us to select the type of printer that is to be used with the LCR.iQ. If I press OK on Printer Type, you'll see it brings up a list box of the different types of printers that are available or different fonts that can be used with the different printers. If I'm unsure which printer type to select, press the Info button and this will bring up a full list of the different printer fonts and types of printers that are available. To close the info, just hit Close Info. The default and most common printer type is Epson Old Font A. This is commonly used with the Epson TMU 295 slip printer. Another common printer in the LPG market is the Blaster printer. The Blaster printer is used with several third-party systems. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll leave it set to the default, which is Epson Old Font A, and then press OK. After printer type, the next field is Delivery Ticket. Delivery Ticket is where we select the type of ticket that we'll be using with the IQ register. If I press OK on Delivery Ticket, you'll see again that we have a list box here of options to choose from. The standard default for the propane market would be the standard short form ticket format. So if I select that version and press OK, now I have that selection made. The next field, Ticket Required, should be set to yes. Again, it's a requirement to print a ticket with each delivery. By setting this field to yes, it means a ticket is required in order to begin a transaction. The next grouping of fields are all additional lines that can print on the selected ticket format, in this case the short form ticket format. For the LPG market, there's really two options that are commonly used. The first, Print Volume Corrected to message. You would set this to yes if your ticket is not already pre-printed with this message. It's a requirement to state that the volume correction factor of 60 degrees Fahrenheit is used. If your ticket does not already have this pre-printed on the ticket, by setting this field to yes, the LCR.iQ will then print that line on the ticket. The Print Multiple Deliveries per Site message is another line that is commonly used. Again, this can be used as an option when the fueler is making a delivery. If he's going to do multiple deliveries at one location or on one ticket, if he has this field set to yes, this will print a line on the ticket that informs the user anytime the no-flow timer has been set from the default of 180 to a value of 0. In other words, no no-flow timer is set. The remaining fields in Register Screen 3 of 4 and also Register Screen 4 of 4 are left typically at default settings for the LPG market. So what we'll do next is go back to the Setup menu by pressing the Setup menu button. Once back at the Setup menu, we'll enter the Meter section next. So we hit the down arrow to Meter, then press OK. The first field in the Meter section that we'll talk about is the Meter ID field. The Meter ID field is commonly used to input the meter serial number. The meter serial number is typically found on the serial tag that's stamped or adhered to the metering system itself. The Meter ID field is an alphanumeric field, so we can put in both letters and numbers. So in here we could input a serial number from one of our measuring chambers and then press OK. And now we have a Meter ID field. The next field, Pulse Input Type, is set to Dual Channel. Dual Channel is the type of pulsar that we would use as a standard in the LPG market. The Flow Direction field is used as a way to change or invert the direction of flow when installing the register. If you install the register on a new system and the register is counting backwards, you can use the flow direction field to invert the flow direction and have it count the other direction. Typically, this is only set during the setup process. The next option, decimal digits, is defaulted to tenths of a gallon. Tenths of a gallon is this default setting used in the LPG market in the US. This means that anytime we're not in the calibration mode and we're in an active delivery, the register will read in tenths of a gallon. In meter screen 2 of 3, valve logic type should be left at the default setting, which is 2-stage preset valve. This is the most common setting for the US LPG market. The remaining fields in meter screen 2 of 3 and also meter screen 3 of 3 are not commonly set in the standard LPG system. So what we're going to do is exit back to the setup menu by pressing the setup menu button. Now we're going to navigate down to the calibration section and press OK. In calibration screen 1 of 4, the first field we're going to talk about is the product number. The LCR.iQ has 16 available products that can be set up and calibrated. In the case of LPG, typically we only set up product number 1. So in this case, you can see I have product number 1 selected. The next field, product type, is used to classify the product that's being used for that product number. In this case, we're going to set this field to LPG. So we find LPG in the list and then press OK. The next field is the pulses per gallon field, sometimes commonly called the K factor. This is the most important value to set inside the register. It is typically set during the calibration process. However, in order to start or begin to deliver fuel, you have to have a default value placed into the pulses per gallon field. From the factory, typically product number 1 is set to 20 pulses per gallon. However, if I enter the pulses per gallon field and press the info button, inside the info section there is a chart of starting calibration factors. So if I scroll down and I see the column here that says pulses per gallon, and then I find my meter type, MA7 would be a standard delivery meter for propane market, I can see that my starting calibration factor is typically around 2,222. So I can type that value into the register and then press OK. Again, that value will not mean that the register is calibrated, but it will give you a starting calibration factor so you can begin the calibration process. The next thing we'll do is activate the temperature compensation. So we'll scroll down to the compensation table, which you see as a default is set to none. When I press OK, it will give me the list of different compensation tables that are available. Again, if I push the info button here, there is a chart of all the different compensation tables that are available inside the register. For LPG in the US, we would typically use table 24. So I'll close the info section and then I'll select table 24 from the available compensation table list. Once I select compensation table 24, you'll see it automatically gives me a default compensation parameter of 0.5 as the specific gravity. Again, this value may vary depending on your jurisdiction, but the most common setting here is 0.5. It will also automatically set the base temperature at 60 degrees Fahrenheit. In calibration screen 2 of 4, we can set up more specific information about the product. So again, you'll see that we already have product number 1 selected for LPG. Here, we can also enter a product code. For the product code, this could be something simple like 1075 for the placard code, or it could be the customer's predetermined product codes that they use. The product name field is used to give a specific product name to the product that's been selected. This product name will show up on the main display screen when we're delivering or selecting a product. In this case, I'll enter in a product name of propane. You'll see I already have my cap locks buttons pressed, so all my letters will be in capital. So now I'll use the alphanumeric keypad to type in propane. And then I'll press OK. Next is the S1 close quantity. The S1 close quantity is used to set a value for the first stage closure of the preset valve. This is the amount of gallons at which it's going to close the first stage before it goes into the low flow. Typically in propane, we'd set this to around 7 gallons. but it will vary depending on the system and the meter type that you're using. At the bottom of calibration screen 204 is the net and gross totalizer value. The net and gross totalizer value are the cumulative totalizers for the system. Typically on a new install, you would want to set these values to 0. The remaining fields in calibration screen 3 of 4 and 4 of 4 are for other features that are available in the IQ. Calibration screen 4 of 4 is used for multi-point calibration. That will be taught in a different tutorial later on. To return back to the setup menu, we're going to press the setup menu button. Then we're going to hit the down arrow to security and press OK. In the security section, there really are no standard LPG default settings that you need to adjust here. However, some customers do like that their systems come unlocked. Any LCR.iQ that ships from the factory ships with the system locked. To unlock it for the very first time, we need to enter in a user key, which is blank. So we scroll down to user key and press OK. Then we just press OK again, entering nothing into that field. And that will automatically unlock the system for the first time. To exit the security menu, we'll press the setup menu button and then go down to the I/O setup section and press OK. The I/O setup section is used to set up all the different inputs and outputs to the IQ register. In here, there's a lot of different parameters that we can set that will affect the system. But today we're just going to cover the standard settings for LPG. Since a printer is required for most LPG applications, you'll see that the default here is for COM port 0 to be set up as printer, and that would be the default when using our standard signal cable. COM port 1 is set to LCP. That would be the standard for customers that are using LCP or some sort of communication to a third-party device. I/O setup screen 2 of 4 is typically used for setting up connectivity to the register via Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or Ethernet. Since this tutorial is on the basic setup parameters for LPG, we won't be covering this today. However, there are additional tutorials on wireless connectivity. I/O setup screen 3 of 4 is where we work with the digital inputs to the LCR.iQ. Digital input 1 and digital input 2 are always defaulted to channel A and channel B of the pulsar that's connected to the IQ register. If your meter configuration has an optical air limiter, you'll want to make sure you go down to digital input 7 that's marked air and select OK. And from the list, select optical air eliminator. This will activate the optical air eliminator sensor tied to digital input number 7. It will also tie the digital output to air solenoid. So you'll see S3 in the output section is automatically set to air solenoid for the optical sensor. Also in the solenoid output section, you'll see that S1 and S2 are automatically defaulted to S1 solenoid and S2 solenoid automatically. To exit the I/O setup screens, I'll just press the setup menu button to go back to the setup menu. The last section we're going to talk about in the setup is the setup home screen. If I press OK on setup home screen, this brings me into the customize home screen and also the configured delivery setup prompts. If we start with the customize home screen, this is where I can configure the 2 detailed columns that will display when I'm in the home or run screen. Under the word profile here is where you can see all the different profiles that are available by industry in the IQ. The default setting being LCR.iQ. However, since we're talking about LPG setup, I'm going to scroll down and you can see the first setting in here is LPG basic pump and print. So if I select that, you'll see it gives me a very basic 1-column display for my details, including the date, time, product name, temperature, flow rate, and net totalizer. If I go down one more option, this adds in the presetting to that. So again, a very basic screen that has my date, time, but then we add the net preset and the preset remaining as details in the detailed column. If I keep going down to LPG preset with multiple deliveries, this adds even more information, including now the multiple deliveries message on the screen. The last LPG option is LPG preset multiple deliveries and pricing. You'll see if I enter this field, I have all my standard LPG settings on the left column and then all the pricing in the right column. The most common profile setting for the LPG industry is LPG with preset. So I'm going to make that selection for my default for right now. Now we're going to have a look at the configured delivery setup section. If we press the right arrow button, this takes us to the Configure Delivery Setup screen. You'll see my profile for LPG preset has carried over, and you'll see that the two prompts or two options available for this profile are Product and Net Preset. These are the two parameters that are available to the fueler when they're setting up a delivery. As an example, if I change this to LPG Preset Multiple Deliveries and Pricing, you'll see that it expands on the available prompts for the user. In this case, the product, the net preset, multiple deliveries message, pricing, taxing, and percent taxing. All those options would then be available to the fueler. For this example, we're going to leave it set to LPG Preset and press OK. To return back to the setup menu, just press the setup menu button. Now that we've completed our basic configuration setup for LPG in the US market, we want to exit back to the main menu by pressing the main menu button. Next, we'll want to put the register back in the normal delivery mode. Locate the bolt on the side of the housing and thread it back in until the bolt is snug against the front cover of the housing. At this point, it will try to print a ticket if you have a ticket printer connected. If you don't, just press the Abort button and this will bring you back to the main menu screen. Now press the home screen button and you'll be back at the main home screen. So now that my basic setup is complete, I can demonstrate how to do a basic delivery with the system. Since we activated net presetting, I have net presetting as an option. So I'll press the net preset button and I can enter in a preset value and then press OK. Now I'm ready to start the delivery. I press the start button, the counter test will be in progress, and once complete, the delivery will begin. At any time during the delivery, I can press the Show Details button to see the additional information on the screen. Now you'll see, since I'm doing a preset, once I reach the S1 close time, I go from the high flow to the low flow for the remaining part of the delivery. And once the final value is complete, it will end the delivery and print the ticket automatically. Thank you for watching this episode of Boost Your IQ on basic configuration of an LPG system for the US market. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to contact the Liquid Controls Technical Services Department at any time. Thank you.